The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
This episode and every episode of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast was brought to you by the generous and awesome support of listeners like you. Do your part and go to mattalkonline.com/join the team and make your monthly pledge. You'll get some cool rewards and perks like access to my Mat Talk Online statistical almanac, digital preview guides, and even some cool swag like shirts, hats, and pint glasses. mattalkonline.com/join the team. It's time for another installment of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jason Bryant, all set to go on a fast plane to China. Yes, not a slow boat to China a la Jimmy Buffett, but a fast plane to China via Detroit, Shanghai, and then to Xi'an. Yes, I'll be working the television broadcast for the Asian Wrestling Championships. That'll be the 20, I don't even know what day. I'm over there for 10 days, and it has been a complete cluster to try to get a visa to China. Now, normally, if you just put down a tourist, that's not a problem. But I am self-employed, and I am a journalist. So, if you're a journalist, there are other pieces of paper you need to file through. I had to fly to Chicago last Wednesday. I found out I had to fly to Chicago that Tuesday night. So, I had an out and back to get interviewed, to get fingerprinted, to get a lot of fun to try to get this Chinese visa. So I'm supposed to leave Friday, April 19th. It is now Thursday, April 18th. Do I have my visa? Well, it's been approved. Do I have my passport? No. Matter of fact, I was there 11 days ago. Actually, at this point, no, 9 days ago. I don't know, was it 8 days ago? Something like that. 8 days ago to get this thing situated. Expedited. It's basically ended up costing me $1,000 just to try to go to China, just to work to try to recoup some of those funds there. So interesting. Interesting week for me. So everything is all sorted out. I've changed the flight to get out a little later. The visa company that I'm using to work on my paperwork has assured me that by the time most of you listen to this, 8 a.m., I will have received my passport and my Chinese visa to go to Xi'an, China. That's XI''AN, to broadcast the World Championships. The Asian Championships. This is it's been a whole lot of fun. Matter of fact, one point yesterday, when I called them in and I says, I'd like to speak to the officer, and then the woman on the phone goes, he doesn't want to talk to you. I was like, what? He goes, he said all he's going to say. It's like, it's processing. It's like, I've never felt so helpless in my life in terms of trying to be able to do something. But crisis somewhat averted. I know Sean Kenny of ESPN. You've seen him do some ESPN broadcasts. He is also doing a lot of United World Wrestling broadcasts. He's also supposed to be my broadcast partner in that respect. He'll handle the play-by-play. I'll handle the color, but he hasn't gotten his returned or approved yet. So this is going to be interesting because he's got to do ACC tennis and then fly to China. I am really wondering if I'm going to see Sean there, because the last time I saw him outside of the NCAAs overseas, he was trying to find us at a brew pub, and he could not find us in the middle of Budapest. That being the case, I have a serious sales pitch for you today, and it's not a sales pitch about giving me anything. It is something I want to give you. It is the newest show from the Mat Talk Podcast Network. It is called Rocked Up. I've been working on this for months. I have finally got pen to paper, microphone to record, post-production, whatever you want to call it. Rocked Up, this is the story of the Little Rock wrestling program. And it's like, they haven't even had a match yet. No, the story behind Little Rock is so much more interesting because it's a Division I program that's starting from scratch in a state that didn't have high school wrestling 10 years ago. That is the story. So much of Little Rock's story is actually the story of how high school wrestling was grown in the state of Arkansas. Episode 1 is now out, and this is not like my normal podcast. This is not just record, interview, release, or, bumper intro, record, interview, witty comeback, sales pitch at the end. No, this is how you might listen to a serialized podcast. If you listen to a lot of podcasts and you've listened to things that are true crime, or if you've listened to serial and it follows a story episodically, one episode to the next, it's a uniform theme. That is what this show is going to be. It's putting my creative mind to work. It's something I've never done before. And Little Rock is something that, I look to have them as a client. And I was talking to Coach Neil Arisman when he got the job, and I said, wait a minute, I got an idea. Let's do something here. And I mocked up an outline for a 12-show model that will lead into their first season. So there's a lot of stuff here. There's going to be interviews with the current athletes. I've actually kind of teased this a little bit with Connor Ward, who was the Little Rock guy back in December when he wrestled the Southern Scuffle unattached as Little Rock's only wrestler. And I went down to Little Rock. I talked to the AD. I talked to a lot of academic and athletic support. I've talked to Greg Hatcher. I've talked to so many people in building the story, and there's still more people to talk to about this. This is just episode 1. So every couple weeks, I will be dropping out a new episode telling a further part of the story. You can go to getrockedup.com. That is the best way to listen to it. It is on the master feed at mattalkonline.com. And if you subscribe and get all the shows on that Matt Talk all shows feed, you're automatically getting it there. But it's at getrockedup.com. It's on mattalkonline.com. And you know what? I want you to hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. This is something I think the story is a way to present wrestling to the mainstream podcast listener or the mainstream content consumer that may not be a wrestling fan. This story, I believe, is more interesting from an outsider's perspective on, wait a minute, how did all of this happen? If you're a sports fan, tell somebody about it. I want you to really listen to this show, and I seek feedback. This is the first time I've done anything remotely close to this in terms of a true storytelling element. There's a little wit, there's a little sarcasm, there is a lot of content here, and there's so much stuff that I'm just curious on how I'm going to be able to fit these stories together. So it is a trial by fire for me. It is a trial by fire for you, the listener. It is a trial by fire for Little Rock, who is, graciously taking the chance on this type of thing. So getrockedup.com. The show is called Rocked Up, available everywhere you find podcasts, except for SoundCloud, because remember, I hate SoundCloud. But you're going to find it on Apple Podcasts, or as you people say, iTunes. Yes, it's still the iTunes program on your computer, but it's pretty much morphed into Apple Podcasts. That pink thing or that purple thing on your iPhone, yes. That's what you do. Hit subscribe. Search Rocked Up. This is going to change the way I do some things too, and it's going to be really something I think the wrestling community is really going to be proud of, and I think it's something that the sports community is going to embrace. So again, the idea here is to tell a story with wrestling as the focal point, but not necessarily have it always be a only for wrestling fans. You're going to hear me say something that like I explained Dan Gable, and I kind of. Yes, I explained Dan Gable. You know who Dan Gable is. But, Johnny Q, neighbor down the street, or Janie Q neighbor, Johnny Q neighbor, who know a little bit about sports and want to hear a good story, they don't necessarily know who John Smith or Dan Gable are. So that is why I certainly approach things the way I did. So that long pitch on the preview of Rocked Up, give it a listen. Send me your feedback at Jason M. Bryant on Twitter, jason@BryantWrestling.com. Hit the contact form at MattTalkOnline.com. I want to hear what you want to say. No, wait. Yes, I want to hear what you have to say, not what you want to say. Just drop me a line, give me feedback, hit the rating and review it. Give it a 4-star, 5-star, 5-star preferred, but give it rate it for what you think it's worth. Just after I've got a trailer episode out there, I've got a full almost 30-minute episode out there. So you can do that through Stitcher, you can do that through Apple Podcast. I'm just curious on how you guys think this is going to turn out. That being said, Tony Hager, Takedown Wrestling, and TheOpenMat.com is the guest here on the show. We're talking media goofery or whatnot. But enjoy it, because I thank you for spending your time with me, because you've always got time for short time. Another episode here of this here Short Time Wrestling Podcast. Today, we're going to do a little media on media meta geekery when it comes to wrestling media. Tony Hager from Takedown Wrestling Media, among other things, a proud Iowan and one of the founders of iWrestle. We'll talk about all the different things that have given Tony the opportunity to make his way into this wonderful world of wrestling media. Tony, your second appearance officially on the show. Welcome back.
I appreciate you giving me the time and being on Short Time.
Yeah, so you've always got time for short time. I like what you did there.
Exactly.
You are learning, my friend. You are doing very well at this whole segues, which, believe it or not, most people still don't know how to spell segue. But this is not a spelling bee. So real quick, there's been some changes in terms of how Takedown Radio is. I mean, there's been some ownership things to talk about. There's a relationship now with TheOpenMat.com. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of how all these things happen, just give a quick once-over of what Takedown Wrestling Radio is, Takedown Wrestling Media is right now, and what people can see from it.
So right now, what Takedown Wrestling has kind of evolved into is a production house for multiple sports. We now produce a softball show and soccer show coming soon. Takedown TV. We used to be kind of like an ESPN, just talking about results. And now we are kind of evolving it more into breaking down it, analysis, because people can just get their information so dang fast now on social media that they don't even care about the scores. They already got them 5 seconds ago. So that's really kind of how the TV show has evolved here recently. And one thing that I'm really excited about is it hasn't really been announced yet because we are now on OTT platforms. So Roku, Apple TV, Fire Stick, all those things. As people cut the cord, we have to find a way to get our TV shows in front of people. So the OTT platform is pretty exciting for Takedown here right now. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting out more information about how people can find the show that way.
And in case some of you folks out there aren't cord cutters, what OTT means, over the top, means it used to be these boxes that you add onto it. Now, a lot of them are built into smart TVs. There could be a dongle or a USB, like Amazon has the Fire Stick, which is, it's an HDMI plug that connects to your network. I'm a cord cutter. I haven't had cable in I don't know how long. So I've got the Samsung smart TVs upstairs and down with the Roku TV built into them. So it's one thing that, again, what is the dynamic of trying to build something like that? Where it's like, okay, we were just on terrestrial TV. That was the sales pitch for years. Now, with less people having, people still have satellite and such, but, cable networks are really kind of moving away from, a lot of dynamic, weird, fill stuff up content. I mean, I'm getting weird channels over the air. Flash Gordon was on this channel called Comet the other day, and that's on like a digital antenna. So, what goes into building an OTT service?
I am not involved in the behind the scenes of kind of how they got involved in this company. Essentially, there's a company like Libsyn, which houses the place for podcasts like yours, and you push it out to Apple TV, Android, iHeartRadio. It goes out with one simple click. Same kind of concept for TV shows, and it's not cheap to get it done, but it's actually an easy concept, but it just costs a little money to get things rolling, and you have to have enough content rolling to where they will take on your own channel essentially. But it's easier than people think. What you would think. I think TV shows. What I was having trouble with is, when Scott was involved, is we were on probably 50 different TV channels, but wrestling people had no clue when where they could watch us, because they would be in Ohio at 8:00 at night and then in Iowa at 4:00 on Sunday. And it's just very hard in the world today of social media to point somebody that way on social media to watch Takedown TV, when someone in Iowa it could be a completely different time that they're on in Ohio. So the OTT platform will make it so much more easier to where we can just, hey, new shows up on all your OTT apps and get it quick and easy with one click. It's a little bit easier to market, in my opinion. And as far as advertisers go, I think the opportunity for analytics to come back, to people to see exactly how many people are actually watching the TV shows. In the past, with our TV shows, they don't give you a number. You don't know if there's 100 people watching it or 1 million people. We've all heard that stick from a past employee of how many channels or how many people are actually watching us. We don't know. It's not like ESPN. It's not like
there's really
Fox
not
Sports,
a Nielsen box for long lines cable, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. That to be able to get TV ratings, you have to be on a whole, the the Power 5 channels from what I've been told anyways. And it costs a lot of money if you want to just get analytics for Fox Sports Ohio. Like we can't even get it from them, and they're a pretty big company. So there's and what's also happening in the cable world too that a lot of people don't know is, there was a little cable company in Stillwater, Oklahoma that used to share our show to 5,000 people that were subscribed to their cable network. Well, that got eaten up by Time Warner, and now that cable network is just completely gone. And Time Warner owns that station still, but there's not like an actual like master controller now at that place. So to try to get a hold of somebody to find out if they're even playing those shows in that area is very difficult, because Time Warner is just they've changed a completely different route, and they're just trying to kind of cut money because we've got cable networks. Just people are going away from them more and more. So this is a way that we can kind of hopefully get out in front of it. We're behind, but in our world, we didn't have that with Takedown TV. We can kind of get into that. So Takedown TV was just 3 guys, and now we've been purchased by a company called Advanced Sports Media. That was their bread and butter is soccer and volleyball, and then they've got softball and wrestling too with TheOpenMat.com. So the ability to have multiple sports verticals was very attractive to me, because wrestling can, as you know, is never ending. You can kind of get down you can go a dark place, especially if you get on Twitter these days. But these other sports that we have available on this OTT platform will kind of be able to help us cross brand.
Yeah, kind of like the boys down in Austin with Flow Sports. They've got multiple verticals on their app with their OTT platform. So if I click on Flow Sports, for example, I get wrestling, but I can also get track and field. I can get grappling. So similar in that respect.
Very similar. Everything that we will be doing will be free. There won't be any actual live events as of right now. We won't be streaming events, but it will be a similar setup. If you're used to Flow, the Flow app, it'll be the exact same thing, but they will be more of analysis type shows. Essentially, look at it as if you're a podcast fan out there, as a podcast, but with a camera in front of the people.
Time shifted entertainment. That's the one thing I enjoy about the podcast thing, because as I said, I will be on a plane to China by the time most of you listen to this. I will be leaving on a jet plane to go to the Asian Wrestling Championships. Hopefully my broadcast partner, Sean Kenny, will have some luck with his visa application. But yeah, so you load up all these podcasts in your ear. You sit there, and I'm on a plane, so I'm gonna sit there and watch them or listen to them when I want. So that's one thing about being time shifted in these cord cutting platforms that are there. But let's circle back. We're cart ahead of the horse. That's a little bit of an update of what's going on technologically with Takedown right now. But as far as the brand itself, it is with the OpenMat. So what used to be takedownwrestle.com dumps you to tv.news.theopenmat.com. TheOpenMat.com, a site I used to work for. I also often joke that I've had more jobs in wrestling than Wade Chalice, approaching the amount of jobs that Sammy Henson's had, where we kind of joke about that. But I want to know how Tony Hager first got involved in wrestling before we can even tell the Tony Hager in Takedown story.
Are we talking like as an athlete?
Let's go back in time, way back
Jesus.
when you're trudging through the cornfields and such.
Yeah, well, that's legit. I grew up on a farm in Ogden, Iowa, and my dad wanted me to be in as many sports as I possibly could be. So I was big into basketball. Actually, I was a short little dude. I still am.
Nothing's changed there.
Yeah, nothing's changed. I was heavy. I played a ton of basketball, but wrestling obviously was always the sport for me, just given my size, I think. And say 50 matches a year. My 8th grade year, ended up at about 100, and played football through junior high, wrestled in high school, obviously. And then I moved on to college, wrestled at Simpson College at the Division III level. And then I just kind of got away from the sport for a while. And it was just, I wouldn't say I was burnt out. I was actually burnt out probably when I got to college. Like when I got to college, man, I wanted to party. I wanted to party. I got away from Ogden, and I got away from the sport after I graduated.
Yeah, because when I think party, I think Indianola.
Yeah. Hey, when you grew up in a small town, Ogden, Iowa, Indianola is a big town. I mean, I went from one bar in town to, Indianola had like 11 bars at one point. So that's a party town to me.
Yeah, right now the coaching staff at Simpson's like, shut up, Tony, shut up.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's completely changed. I think the culture of the sport of wrestling too is completely changed too. Like, there's no more Royce Algers going out and drinking on a Thursday night and then wrestling the next day. That's just, you can't. Athletes today are completely different. From even, I mean, I graduated in 2008 from college, and it's just completely changed in the last 10 years. That mindset of being able to do that, you just can't compete at the high levels.
What did you enjoy about the Division III experience? Despite the 11 bars in town.
Yeah, I mean, on the wrestling side of things, the Iowa conference is the hardest conference in the country for Division III, and it's the hardest it was Luther, Wartburg. I almost actually went to Augsburg, but I think the Division III level, like, you get to see a lot of the kids that you wrestled with in high school and AAU, especially in Iowa, anyways. And I liked being able to go to tournaments and kind of give each other crap. Um, and I think with the Division III level, there wasn't maybe as much pressure to win, because we weren't scholarship athletes. We were just kids that just loved the sport of wrestling. And I never felt that pressure to perform, I guess. So that's what I liked about it. And we left the tournament, and maybe it wasn't as successful as you wanted to, and went back with our friends, and you kind of shifted from, you just brushed that weekend off. I think if at the other levels, if you don't have a good weekend, I mean, you're wrestling, your fans on social media, the message boards, blow up like, what the hell's going on? At Division III level, we just never really had that.
Now, when we decide to come back to wrestling, explain what brought you back in wrestling. You said you'd gotten through college and then, you're away from it for a while. Well, what brought you back?
I mean, I wasn't even watching it. Like, I didn't watch.
Why not? I mean, I guess that's a question we have with retentions. Like, why do people who wrestled not watch wrestling anymore?
As a wrestler, I think I didn't know the storylines. So when you're wrestling you're in that world, you don't follow other schools, you don't follow other teams. So when I got out of college, I didn't really have any of those storylines that I could follow, and I got out of it for a little bit, didn't follow it. Then I don't even know. I don't even know what the moment was like. Hey man, I should just watch wrestling again. I think it was my cousin, actually. My cousins were getting ready to go to state wrestling, and I went back to watch them try to qualify for state. And I think that's what brought me back to it, trying to learn like who are the good kids in Iowa. And I couldn't find a lot of information. That's could kind of segue into I wanted to start IRSL. I wanted to be able to know who these kids are, why I should be watching them, and that's how IRSL got started, really, covering that and covering the Iowa Hawkeye wrestling. So there's I guess there's a lot of steps that went into that, but I can't. If I had to pinpoint what brought me back into it, it'd probably be my cousins trying to qualify for state wrestling.
So the foundation of iWrestle, which for those who may remember, kind of started out as very bloggish, and then it started to take on team bloggers and team reporters. I mean, just talk about basically that first day that the site went live and the evolution since, and maybe some of the things you guys learned along the way.
So how iWrestle got started was Kurt Crittenden and myself were also kind of in this limbo of not knowing a lot about the athletes currently, and couldn't find specific information on athletes. And we were working for a website called HawkeyeNation.com. I did Black Heart Gold Pants. It's kind of like Barstooly type stuff. And we just decided that we wanted to get entrenched into wrestling, wanted to give back to the sport, and didn't even think it could be a business at the time. We were working for free, so we're like, we might as well just have our own gig, control our own destiny, have no people telling us what we could and cannot do. So iWrestle got started strictly to cover the Iowa Hawkeyes. Yeah, and we all know how big that fan base is. And then it evolved into fans want to know why we weren't covering UNI, why we weren't covering Iowa State. So we started doing that. And then there was, another website in Iowa that was covering Iowa high school wrestling, college wrestling that I grew up reading. It's called The Predicament. You could get the paper in every single month, and you get that. You could see your name in it, tournaments. It was one of the coolest things ever. But that was in 2012, and I got into this media world, and social media was huge. It's everything, and people don't read anything anymore. They know they read, but they don't physically like get magazines in the mail and read those, right? I mean, I haven't in a long time. I still get The Predicament, but we felt the need to bring this to life, and it has evolved, like you said, into like a blogger fanboy type deal, to where we've got legitimate, I guess, fanboys that have turned themselves into what I consider a journalist. You know, Ross Barczyk does a heck of a job for us, considering what he used to put out, what he does now. Nick Ryder, same situation. A guy that was just a fan of UNI wrestling, and now he takes it very serious of what he puts out for previews, when he's covering events, and when he gets done with the event. So I'm pretty proud of the little team that we've built here at iWrestle. Now we're in Nebraska and North Dakota as well.
Yeah, and that growth, and one thing that comes with that growth is the getting slapped on the wrist sometimes. Be like, no, you can't do that. I mean, how do you guys basically evolve from, for lack of a better term, as you said, fanboys, to being people that are in the media, and again, doing things the right way, or doing things that are still within the constructs of how professional media is supposed to act, but still having your own spin on it. I mean, you guys went from being kind of almost a renegade type of outfit to winning website of the year because of the quality of your work. I mean, that was quite a progression to see.
Yeah, when you asked me kind of what the hiccups were, and I'd say the biggest hiccup were just other competition out there. Like we got Andy Hamilton in the state of Ohio. We got KJ Pilcher. We've got multiple names that have their respected media outlets. And then there's The Predicament that covers the whole state. And I think when we came in, people, I'd say they just didn't respect us, right? We were just fanboys. We were just people that grew up wrestling and was trying to get as much information out there as possible and as fast as can. And I think writers in Iowa didn't know really how to handle that. They had a whole day before their article gets put out. Say the wrestling event gets over 8:00. Well, they put in their article, and it comes out 8:00 the next morning. Well, we were putting stuff out right away. We were putting out interviews right away, and they couldn't really do that anymore. They had to put like a short little release out to get those eyeballs. And I think we made the people in Iowa work harder, I guess, to get their content out, if that makes sense. Like we always knew that their content was going to be better, I guess. But our concept was to try to get those clicks before other people saw the clicks, because there's only so many articles you can write about Iowa Hawkeyes or Iowa State, winning or losing, essentially. So that was that was hard to break through some of those barriers. And then when we go to events, like, we can't drink beer or show up hungover, I guess, at these events. Like that's
you can still show up hungover.
Yeah,
you have to disguise it a little bit differently. Now, I haven't had that opportunity in a long, long time, but it's definitely doesn't stop people from showing up hungover, especially when they're like at NCAAs on like, I don't know, the 7th floor.
Yeah, I think wrestling fans, looking at wrestling media members, just putting yourself going from staying out all night and then going and actually having to like run around the arena and stuff like that. So we learned that it's kind of shunned, I guess, by some media members, because these guys, most of these people, they went to college for this. They went to college to be able to cover the sport of wrestling.
The room smelled of booze.
Yeah, I mean, we never, and I still don't to this day, want to disrespect anybody that went to college to do this. It's just a different world now, where almost anybody can have a podcast. Anybody can pick up a camera and put it in front of their face or put it in front of somebody else's face. And I think that's been good for wrestling. We've got tons of media outlets. Hell, we have 8 different people or 10 different people doing rankings, which is obnoxious, but it also is it's a good and a bad thing to have this many wrestling outlets.
I mean, I like, and this is coming from somebody who did rankings when I was at Intermat from 2005 to 2008, and then again with the OpenMat, the 2012-13 years, is that I'd equate it like this, because there's enough rankings in wrestling that you can find the one that makes your program look better. And I'd equate it to saying, it's like being the skinniest kid at fat camp. Yeah, that's great. You're the skinniest kid at fat camp. You're still fat. It's like, I mean, now I'm not trying to shame anybody, because I'm kind of a larger individual myself, but it's like, really, I don't believe there is a such thing as a best ranking, although there are definitely rankings that put in more work, and the product you see, they get things a little bit, I don't know if you can be right and more when it's considered an opinion, but when there's 8 or 9 out there, it kind of you lose the legitimacy of like, okay, you've got the best rankings. Okay, so what? What does that mean? And that's not a dig on any particular outlet out there, because I've been in that situation where I was, believing that the OpenMat or Intermat rankings were the best out there because they were the most complete in research. But again, doesn't matter. I mean, it's like when I left to go, people were still emailing me about Intermat rankings 8 years after I left, and I was working for another outlet by then. So, I mean, it's all about what people are paying attention to. Now, getting back to the evolution of iWrestle and, branching out to North Dakota and Nebraska, why were those states optimal places for the type of site to branch out to?
How we got involved with the other sites was trying to find like-minded people that were willing to put in the work to build this network, a site that people could go to every single morning. And Nebraska had people. I'm not sure they maybe want their name mentioned, I guess, but they came to me and said, hey, we want to do exactly what you guys are doing in Iowa. How do we do it? And we essentially gave them kind of the blueprint of this is how we do it. And then throughout the season, I just say, watch what we're doing. These are some ideas that are working. This is getting a ton of clicks. You guys should do the exact same thing. So it's not necessarily that was a market. I mean, no one really thinks of Nebraska as their college viewership is not very good in Nebraska, but their high school stuff is great. Same thing with North Dakota. There was a ND Headlock where a lot of people have been around. He's been around for a while, actually.
Yeah, and even way before that, Dakota Grappler with John Gums.
So they already had established websites, but they're only one person. So I went to him and say, we might be able to help you with some social media stuff. We're at all these events that maybe you don't have the means to go to. We can help you kind of cover these things and give you like a little bit of a branding behind it. That was kind of the concept of how we got North Dakota. Now we're looking to go to possibly Missouri. There's a website down there that could possibly come underneath our umbrella and kind of gravitate that. I mean, I would say it's almost like we have wrestling fans in every state that are crazy, but they don't know how to kind of put it together. And I say make money, because we're not making them a bunch of money too, but creating the content that keeps people coming to the website. Like message boards were like the main thing of why people went to some of these websites. And the way that iWrestle works is we don't have forums. We do not have a wrestling forum on our website. And the reason for that is because when I was a wrestling fan growing up is I didn't go to the main page. I bookmarked the forum that I liked. So, and that's usually like a third-party site. So now I'm bookmarking that forum and not actually going to the page that has the content with the actual journalist, and you're not getting clicks that way. No person that buys advertising is going to buy message boards clicks. And if they do, they're getting misinformed. But that's another topic.
Yeah. And here's what I know about message boards. I hate them. No, I love them and hate them because I've been posting, under my real name for, I don't know, probably at this point 20 years. I had one in Virginia back with the first iteration of Mat Talk Online, which at one point, John Cerritos, who's now the head coach at Cal Poly, he was coming through, and he had transferred from Bethel to Great Bridge, which was the powerhouse program that had the kids transferring in, and it was a big deal. And Cerritos one day, I think he was in college, I think he was actually coaching at Old Dominion. He goes, man, back in the day, Matt Talk was shit talk central. And it was so bad back in the day. I would leave for class in college. 50 minutes later, I'd have to pull like 100 posts because people can't follow simple rules. No anonymous names, no profanity. It was much headaches. And then, I don't know, get hired by USA Wrestling and have to moderate the Mat.com. You want to talk about the seventh circle of hell? Sometimes that moderating that message board. The stuff you guys didn't see was one of the things. It's not like I was banning people. I think I banned 12 people in 3 years. It's not like it was a big deal. And most of those were troll accounts. But it's like, if people really want to know what type of what hell is in some respects in regards to what people like us do, moderate a message board that gets a ton of traffic. I can only imagine what the people at the Hawkeye Report see during any type of Tom Terry Brands meltdown that goes on. So don't miss those days.
I don't even know if the Hawkeye Report has a moderator. They kind of just let everything fly. I don't know if they've got one or not. But yeah, there's a reason why like Flow and Track don't have a forum. I think it causes
We have Facebook
chaos.
for that now. We have Facebook
Yeah.
for the unintelligent commenters.
Yeah.
I thought there should be an IQ test for people using technology. I know like Willie had tweeted something about an email that he had gotten from a ranking, something about rankings, just personal attack like crazy. I'm like, and those are real things because I've gotten them. And I think everybody that's done rankings have gotten the crazed parent fan that just calls you names because you're not drinking the Kool-Aid. So that's a headache I don't think anybody wants these days. That's what people on Facebook have to deal with.
Yeah, so I'm glad we don't have to take care of it. I'll let the other people worry about message boards. We're just trying to put out as much content as possible. iWrestle kind of just got evolved, and then I fell into Takedown.
Yeah, explain the falling into Takedown, because you came in, and I know Scott had been looking to possibly sell it for a number of years. It's something that even on the last show, it was actually, believe it or not, like the first time I think in 12 years I had shown up on Takedown Radio was Scott's final show. You reached out. I said, yep, this is something that, whether you listened a whole lot or not, that for 20 years, almost 20 years, that was Saturday mornings in Iowa and nationwide. So, I mean, it's something that's there, and it's something that innovated the sport of wrestling, and really, again, radio and TV kind of validates a lot of things. So when the radio component's there, when do you first say, all right, I'm interested in this Takedown wrestling thing after having launched iWrestle?
Well, it was kind of a perfect storm for him to bring me in. I had been selling mortgages. I was a mortgage broker for a few years, and then I became a partner in the company, and they were wanting to go a different direction. And there was laws that were coming down that were going to affect my pocketbook. And I decided, I happened to get lunch with Scott with some other people right at the exact same time that the sale of my mortgage company was going down, or they were buying me out. Essentially, I was going to walk away type deal. And he offered me to, come in and kind of see what they did. I didn't know a lot of what Takedown TV was, what Takedown Radio was, at that, I didn't know that world yet. iWrestle had just kind of been started, about a year under our belt. And I kind of just fell in love with the idea of, hey, I could cover wrestling full time. Like, this is pretty attractive. Like, there's not very many people out there right now currently that do this full time. And he offered me a buy-in of the company, and I took it. I ran with it, and we were in business for a few years, and I think we made a lot of positive changes when I got in. We were at TheOpenMat. I don't know if any people even remember this or not, but we were like a sister site of TheOpenMat, but it was Takedown. It had the exact same format. I don't know how long Takedown was underneath that umbrella, but we changed our actual own website.
You know what I think? Because Scott had come on with TheOpenMat when I was at TheOpenMat back from 05 to 08. And that was actually one of the, just to get off tangent here for a little bit, the first real audio interviews within wrestling in this type of format were actually part of TheOpenMat's premium service. And Scott, myself, and Kyle Klingman were actually doing these interviews. I mean, we had Bubba Jenkins before he won the Junior World Championships talking about his preparation. We had various guests that were behind. Now you're seeing premium podcasts, unlike The Athletic. Yeah, we did that with Takedown at this point, 11 years ago, podcasting was still kind of new. We didn't really know what that format was, but they were Windows Media Audio. They were not technologically advanced, but they were there. So, and when I left and then they sold it to Andrew at Rev Wrestling, the branding stayed the same. Takedown Wrestle, Intermat Wrestle. It was very, all goes back to those years, because it had started with the Wrestling Mall, and I think it was Intermat, then it went to the Wrestling Mall, then went back to Intermat. So I think that was the progression of website tie-ins.
So we went on our own, and you just need a lot of people to make. If you're wanting to be able to compete with, we're a multi-million dollar company like Flow Wrestling, Track Wrestling. They've got lots of people on the ground. So if you're trying to compete with them and get the same amount of eyeballs on your stuff, you got to have a lot of people. And with Scott, myself, and Brad Johnson, our producer, we couldn't do that. And we're never going to get in the streaming world, or we're never going to be able to compete probably with those guys. But we have a different model. We have a TV show and a radio show. It's a podcast too, but it's a different media as far as selling it to advertisers. So we have a niche, but we needed more people. And I needed, for it to go where I wanted it to go, we had to sell, and we had to get more people in and kind of merge them. And the TheOpenMat came on board, and it took a while to get it done. If people know me, it took a while to get that sale to go through, but there's been a lot of crazy changes that have happened in this. It's been just over a year now that we've been with the TheOpenMat, and things have changed.
Even staffing issues have changed. I left and then, started my own thing, and Alex Steen did a great job with the TheOpenMat, and then he stepped away to get back into his wheelhouse of tech. And then, Earl Smith has come aboard with the TheOpenMat. And, I don't know anybody who doesn't like Earl. I mean, he made an appearance on the podcast earlier this year. Well, actually last year, in Fargo, his first Fargo, and then he shows up on Short Time. But what's it like to work with Earl? Because he's got a knowledge, he's got a dry wit about himself, and it just seems like he'd be generally a really fun guy to work with on a day-to-day basis.
Earl is like the cool, calm, collective dad in a hotel before like all the other dads are like, hey, let's go out drinking. We'll go out for a couple beers. And he's like, I can only do like one, and then he goes out and he has fun. So he's just real cool, calm, collective. He's a very structured person, and he knows exactly every day what he's got coming out. And he's good for a guy like me who wants to do more and more and more all the time. And I think he's kind of like the fly on the wall that he's always got something working on, and doesn't, I wouldn't say get voice his opinion. He needs to, because he's got great knowledge up there. I mean, his content, from the numbers from a year ago, from what he's been putting out, are up 180% as far as viewership goes. And I don't know if that's because of the merge or not, but Earl's got a unique mindset the article he had the other day was like Tiger. What was going on in the world of wrestling when Tiger Woods won his first major? Like, that would have taken me personally like multiple days to put together, but he knocked it out like on Monday after Tiger won. Like, that's interesting content to me. I don't know about everybody else, but
everybody likes a retrospective. I mean, like Penn State did the whole some of their outlets, not Penn State proper, but the media that covers like Onward State. They had the 10 years ago what changed the world, and then like the oral history of Penn State wrestling after Kale got hired. So those retrospective things. As a matter of fact, Earl texted me, he goes, "Hey, which outlet were you at in July of 2008?" I'm like, "I was still with Intermat." So looking at the dynamic of who was covering wrestling 10 years ago is completely different too. So it all comes full circle, but it's also, like I said, some people just like that retrospective read. I love stats and history. So that was right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I'm super happy with what he's been putting out. We still need more people. Earl handles quite a bit. We've got Bryce Villa, Clay Surtig. I can't ever pronounce his name. Sauerteig. Well, I can't remember. We were calling him something different.
I think he tweets more. I think he tweets more in one day than he actually exhales.
So I just call him Clay. Okay, all right. Sorry, Clay. Man, I can't pronounce your last name. I still couldn't do it after JB gives me the perfect pronunciation. So yeah, I think we're going in the right direction. We had what's good about what I think with us is we've got these other verticals that we can learn from soccer and volleyball and softball of what's working in those other sports that we can maybe apply into wrestling that wrestling people just have not seen because we kind of get just stuck in our own little rut and we need to do more of that. Uh, well, I'm excited for that part of the future. Scott Casper is no longer with the company. That's been a big change. You know, people listen to Saturday Radio, like you said, for over 20 years. He was a pioneer of interviewing coaches. But things change, and there's new people at that home, I guess. And if you listen to Takedown Radio, you're gonna hear a different show. Now there won't be softballs. There'll be some, but I think we're going to get more into talking about the positives and the negatives of our sport. I mean, last week we had Mason Beckman. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it.
Oh yeah,
yet,
I actually did, and that brings up the point. Is typically Saturday mornings I listen to my podcast nerdery shows. I mean, it's like okay, something I can learn in regards to what I can apply to my business, and I don't, one thing I noticed the format's changed. You had 3 guests instead of like 6, getting a coach on for 10, 15 minutes at a time. I don't think you're going to get to it. So yeah, you had Beckman on for like 40 minutes and I haven't gone back and listened to the rest of the show, but I went back and I caught some of it live. Again, first time I think in 10 years, I probably listened to something live, on TDR and it's like, there is a conversation, getting a college coach to talk about, recruiting violations or alleged recruiting. That's something that really, the outlet really hadn't done a whole lot of. So kudos to that, but curious on where that conversation is going to lead to. But from a listener standpoint, and again, I'm not trying to throw shade, but typically I don't listen to things that aren't entertaining or I don't learn something from. And last week's show, for example, first time I listened was entertaining, and I was learning something along the way. So that's always been my model. Like with this show, I want people to find out something they didn't know about before. It's not just saying, hey, here's an interview with a national champion. No, I want to find a few more things out that may not always be out there and tell the story. And yes, there are softballs because sometimes you got to get the story rolling first.
Yeah, I think that's important. You have to entertain people. Like when Takedown Radio started, you couldn't have access to coaches like Chris Bono. We had Chris Bono on as well. He's got Jump Around Mondays now. Like fans can interact with them now more than ever. So an interview with Chris Bono now doesn't really mean a whole lot to, I guess, the Wisconsin fans as it did maybe 8-10 years ago, where that'd be the only time they'd be able to interact or hear from the coach. In today's world, you get to hear from almost all these coaches every single week on social media for their personal. Like it's an easy way to connect with them. So now you have to give them what they don't get, what's behind the scenes. And that's what's so good about wrestling podcasts that are good. You get to hear those things that fans just don't get to see or hear, right? So
yeah, one thing I'm also curious about is, I've been at this broadcasting thing and I've been behind a microphone since I was 14 years old. So I've got 25 years going on 26 as I turn 40 later this year. And how to, microphone technique and just being comfortable being on camera and being behind a microphone. Having not being trained as a broadcaster or media guy, you're now in a situation where you're hosting a radio show. And, especially with terrestrial radio, you got to be up against breaks. You got a producer there you're dealing with. I mean, what was that evolution like from going from not being a radio guy to being a radio guy?
I'll never forget. I was at Midlands for the first time, just started working with Scott, and we were front row of media with Midlands. They had like a bottom row right on the mat, and the other media members were up in the stands. And I don't even know who some of these people are. Like, and he brings up Tim Sasesky, and he puts a camera in front of me and Tim, and Scott goes, "All right, you need to interview Tim about the Midlands." I'm like, and this is live in front of all these media members, and I had to look like a complete idiot, just a kid out of college, what that taught me is you can't be scripted. You just have to try to have a conversation with people. And but that's not easy to do. I mean, even this podcast, like I'm used to being the one that controls the conversation. So you interviewing me, it's just kind of a different. I'm learning every day. We do these Tom dailies on. I don't know. You just kind of have to go for it and be able to take constructive criticism. I ask my wife every day, like, what do you know, I make her watch some of my stuff. I'm like, what do you think of this? She's like,
oh,
well,
dude, that is a very hard thing to convince your wife to. I asked my wife to do the same thing. She's like, I don't, it does, you know, it's not like she doesn't dislike wrestling, but me talking about wrestling and podcasting so much, it's like, all right, what are you going to ask me now? If it doesn't involve wrestling or podcasting, I'm interested in hearing it. And I'm like, I got nothing. But I did make her listen to the Little Rock show that I just released, and she actually did enjoy that, like, legitimately. So if my wife can listen to a story that's about wrestling and it's not about wrestling, your wife might be interested too. Hint, hint. Those of you listening, if you want to get people into a wrestling show, this might be the Rocked Up show might be your buffer. But enough for the shameless plug on my end.
Yeah, I think how I got her talked into this because it was only like 40 seconds long, and yeah, I like when people tell me. I grew up with a coach that always told me straight, like, hey, you should not be doing this. You should do it this way, or try this. And I think that was something that I've had to learn as, you know, when Scott threw me to the wolves there, is to make sure you listen to yourself, make sure you critique yourself. And every day I'll listen to some of this stuff and I'll be like, why the hell did I say that? Or why am I not talking like I would be talking to this person, like I'm having a beer with them at a bar? Like, it's when you put a camera in front of somebody, you put a mic in front of somebody, they just, you can completely change the way that you act, and that is just not easy to do that. So I'm continuing to learn. I wouldn't say that I've got it figured out by any means, but I'm more comfortable behind the camera than I was at Midlands for so many years ago.
Remember that time you wrestled in Iowa? Yeah, that was awesome. That's all I'm picturing right now is that, you know, whatever. It was the Chris Farley sketch anyway. But moving forward with what's going on with Takedown and the Open Mat, I mean, you've got Advanced Sports Media overseeing things. You've even branched out into other podcasts that and media that's not about wrestling. And, you know, what's the future look like now? And what can people, if they haven't been, you know, I'll be honest, there's probably people out there who, like me for a while, weren't paying attention to what was going on with TDR and Takedown Wrestling Media. What's the hook to bring them back now that there's, you know, I don't get upset when other people listen to other wrestling podcasts. In case in point, you know, we're talking here, you guys put out some podcasts, you're doing shorts now, cutting up segments and such. But what are some things if somebody's like, oh yeah, I used to listen to Takedown. Now, what is the hook to bring them back in to give you guys another chance?
No softballs. Real live talk wrestling.
Well, the only softballs are on Fast Pitch News. You can actually get real softballs on the network.
You can legitimately get one on the softball network. I would say being able to have the OTT platform, search Advanced Sports Media on Roku or whatever you need to do. Find that. We're gonna have a ton of video content coming out on the wrestling side of things and other sports. I'm gonna be doing shoe reviews, and we used to interview coaches. And it was a Skype interview, kind of like this, but you'd be able to see their face. But we're going to do something similar to that, but we're going to have it actually on a set, and there'll be some interaction that you'll be able to see myself and the coach talking live. But the biggest thing that I would tell people is we're not going to try to beat around the bush of any of the storylines in wrestling anymore. The Open Mat is known for being what kind of the name. It's the Open Mat. You know, they've pissed off USA Wrestling. They've pissed off other networks because they're kind of opinionated people. And maybe they've gotten away from that because our sport is so, like, you know, if you throw gas on the fire, man, you're done. Like, you can be taken away. You know, you're not going to have access to this coach ever again if you piss them off. And that's still happening, but you know, we can't be afraid to do that. And I think that's what you're going to find with Takedown and the Open Mat now. I would suggest people follow at the Open Mat, Takedown Wrestle social media. We're going to be kind of transferring into the Open Mat, I think, as time goes on here. So make sure you follow at the Open Mat for everything that is Takedown TV and Takedown Radio.
All right, Tony, I guess the biggest question, I think, through all of this wonderful wrestling media world, we got a lot of platforms. You can consume a lot of content. If you're live video, you got Track, you got Flow. If you want, each of those sites also have some editorial content. You got podcasts. I've kind of got the leading the way there, but each one of those sites have podcasts and such. From a wrestling fan perspective, you've got more options than you've ever had before. When you sit back and look back at wrestling, 15 years ago, when it was only just a couple websites that were really doing things, and there was still the relevance in the magazines, it is a really cool time to be covering the sport. And that's not just us like saying, hey, we're doing a great job, but it is a really cool time to be able to follow things as they unfold, not just on social, but internally.
The amount of content that is out there is, I don't see how fans could become disinterested like I did when I was in college, and I had to walk away from the sport for a little bit. If you follow it now and you get away from it, like, you just don't want to be involved in wrestling, because you are getting it spoon-fed to you every single day on social media in all aspects, like podcasts and videos on your social media of the podcast. It's hard to get away from unless you just completely disconnect from social media. And what I found in the wrestling media world is there's definitely politics inside the media world within our little group, but at the most part, like, people are competitors, but at the same time, we have the same common goal of supporting wrestling. And if we can have more of that, where brands like yourself and our brand can, we push your content, you push ours, and everybody wins if we work together. So, but the friendly banter is always good, but working together seems to always work out the best.
Hashtag wrestling Twitter. Yeah. Anyway, you can find Takedown Radio, Takedown TV, Takedown Media, all the outfits, outlets, everything. You can start with the wrestling side at TheOpenMat.com. And Tony, if they happen to have a son or daughter in another sport with verticals you guys have, what are some places they can find the advanced sports media offerings?
Top Drawer Soccer is going to be everything for soccer. Everything from like college down, and your club level will be for soccer. Then Fast Pitch News, same concept, not a whole lot of pro stuff. Going to be your college on down. And then prepvolleyball.com, same concept as well. It's going to be a subscription-based content, not streaming videos. And then we're also getting into pickleball, which is a completely different. That's another podcast.
Sorry, dude. No, I am not. I am not going to talk to you about pickleball.
Pickleball is
not going to happen.
But you can drink beer and play pickleball, so you might be interested. All right.
The only beer drinking sports I like are that I can do at the same time are bowling, fishing, and disc golf.
How about cornhole? Is cornhole
okay? I'll call them activities. I don't necessarily want to call them sports, but I mean, like, we're getting to the Ocho definition. If it's almost a sport, you'll find it here. But cornhole, I am not good at cornhole. I'm really not good. I'm not good at ladder ball. I used to be really good at darts, but maybe as I build a Speakeasy Day studio here in New Brighton, where the weather is going to be really nice today. As you know, every day at 9:30, the pickleball, not quite there, but darts. I have to bring up a dart wrestling podcast or something.
That's a great idea. Dart wrestling podcast.
Tied in with Game of Thrones. Just to make Richard Immel happy over at his new venture. So, but Tony, I appreciate the time and all the updates you've got on what's going on with Takedown. And, this is a conversation we can definitely revisit as you guys are trotting out new factions. And of course, like I said, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. And again, thank you for spending your time with me, because you've always got time for short time, right?
I've got time for short time. Freestyle season, baby. Greco too. Don't leave those guys out.
Yes, and let's not forget the pickleball season.
Pickleball. Thanks, Jason.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. Hey, you know what? Did you like the show? You want to hit that subscribe button? MatTalkOnline.com/listen. Various different ways to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcatcher of choice. And if you're already subscribed, you already listened, and you love the show, and you want to support this show and this network, MatTalkOnline.com/join the team. Become a team member today.